Last year, I took some time to imagine what the best future printer could look like by taking all the elements of the best machines and suggesting this is what we want as a new baseline. And since then, there hasn't been a single printer to tick all of those boxes for me, and in reflection, honestly, every single printer we've had in the last 12 months, whilst edging forward in terms of technology, has come with a substantially large but. Just see my best resin printers of 2024 video if you haven't already, and you'll see that pretty much every printer now, whilst awesome, has some silly drawback you just need to accept when buying any particular machine. Today though, I want to separate it from reviews and delve a little bit deeper, taking a look at some of the modern features and rate them based on my own personal feelings towards their value in the realm of resin printing. Think of this like an amusing game show, one which you can be a part of, and feel free to disagree in the comments. This video is solely my opinion, but I've never professed to be 100% right about anything, because I'm married. Hi, I'm Ross, and this is Fohammer Videos. So for this, I've decided to come up with an amusing rating system based on me being British and using profanity like it's punctuation. I figured I didn't quite get the point across to the brands well enough last year, so this time we may as well at least have some fun with it. So let's go. Like in my reviews, I want to start externally. We can talk about what printers look like all day long, and this is very much a personal thing. Whether it's Elegoo's more techie angled style or Anycubic's modern professional style, even Frozen, which I think looks slightly better, I wouldn't rate anything here above it'll do. However, I do have a preference for Hagear's machines, but I'd still only up that to bloody bang on. Nothing here has wowed me, though I have to drop the GK3 and 3 Pro into the camp of absolute piss take. I don't actually think it's that bad and now see where my rating system naming has failed, but I just don't like it. It's that contrast of PSX grey plastic against the green lid. Yeah, it's not terrible, but to me, when shown against other printers, I personally feel it's below par. So I guess this is just a bit of a piss take. Hey, the rating system does work thanks to verbal flexibility. One of the big things we've seen in this last year though is up and over lids, and I like these. What I like about all the ones I've tested so far on various brands is that for those of you working in print farms and not wanting to sacrifice height or depth amongst your work area, you can easily remove the screws for these hinges and have them operate as easily removable faceplates. Because of this, I'm rating every up and over lid as the dog's bollocks, and whilst these are more common on larger printers, I would like to see them incorporated in smaller machines too. Nowadays, if you are a 10-inch or larger printer, a lift-off lid falls into it'll do, but for any more premium machines like those called Ultra or Pro, and you don't have a flip-over lid, I'm calling that an absolute piss take, and yes, I'm looking at you, Anycubic. When it comes to other external features, this is easy. If you don't have rubber grips on your feet, that is total wanky tat. It may not bother some of you, but it just looks so cheap when a 3D printer can slide across a surface. As for ports and other external features, well, it's hard to rate depending on the price of a machine and who it's aimed at. I rarely care if a printer has an internal or external PSU, though the latter is easier to replace if the transformer blows. It's the same with Ethernet ports. If you're not buying a machine for any necessary network capabilities, then you don't need this, but if a printer is network enabled and has Wi-Fi but no Ethernet, that is an absolute piss take in my eyes. Honestly, Anycubic, I'm not attacking you on purpose. We'll move on to USB ports. All of the options fall neatly into my rating system here. On the back, which I haven't seen since the G-Tech Alcade, is total wanky tat. On the side near the back, which is most printers, is a mild piss take. On the side near the front, it'll do. On the front is bloody bang on. And on the front, but slightly recessed to protect the port from resin drips, is the absolute dog's bollocks. So well done Uniformation on the GK3 and GK3 Pro. Good call. One thing I do need to call out as an extra feature, which is bloody bang on, is Hagear's having an extra port for an SD card which allows you to expand the internal memory. Obviously, this is only useful for machines with internal storage and is only really useful for people who print the same thing multiple times over, but I like the addition on a premium machine. And finally, on the external side of things, extraction ports. Nobody has hit the high tiers here because even the brands that have given us dedicated holes leave us with nothing to plug into them, except the Mars Mate, which in itself is a total piss take. However, there are some callouts. The fact that Creality gave us an extendable hose in the Hallett Mage Pro and S makes this solution bloody bang on. But thanks to the DIY nature of Anycubic Frozen and Elegoo vents, I guess until we see better, it'll do. Uniformation have no dedicated internal vent hole in their machines, which is an absolute piss take, but there are some DIY solutions online. Hagear's though not only has no vent hole or obvious fixing location, the only DIY solution I've seen so far that doesn't involve masking tape and a hose, which I think doesn't actually extract from the curing chamber anyway, is this one, which takes over the resin bottle hole. So in comparison to what other brands are doing for people using these machines in their home, this lack of even consideration to have such a hole is complete and utter total wanky tat. Apparently Hagear's are working on what they say is a better solution, so I guess we'll see. Let's go inside the printer and first talk about the build plates. Most are now laser etched, but for those wanting a smooth underside on your prints, you won't get that here. It leaves a pattern. Smooth plates aren't quite as grippy, though in my experience with base exposure times dialed in, these are just fine. If it matters to you, you can probably make any rough plate smooth by getting a flex plate from the likes of Wham Bam, though they can come with their own adherence challenges and can potentially cause issues with pressure sensing features of machines. Now, I don't know, I've not tested it, it's just an absent worry I have, so don't shit on me if I'm wrong here, I'm just saying, do your own research. And let me know if printers do have issues by adding a little bit more thickness to the plate when it has pressure sensing. I'd rate pretty much all build surfaces as it'll do, because nothing has wowed me here, except for a couple of features that haven't come out yet that I saw at Form Next. Hagear's showed off one of their larger machines with a pop-off mechanism. Now obviously you'd put a tray below this to catch the parts before using it, but I can still see challenges with this mechanism, such as dropping a load of small detailed parts onto a tray would risk breaking them. However, anything that gets us away from scrapers is bloody bang on in my opinion. It was actually Formlabs that showed me their dog's bollocks approach by having an integrated flex plate which you can use to just pop models off just by flexing the tabs. I would love to see something like this in more budget-friendly machines. Now we come on to leveling mechanisms, and well, okay, auto-leveling as a term is absolute bollocks, and due to its misleading nature, I'll categorize that marketing claim as total wanky tat, developed by some kind of cockwomble. I literally just looked up cockwomble on Urban Dictionary, and whilst you might not like profanity, well, you've got this far, so you must like it to some degree. But yeah, the description's quite accurate. But anyway, my objection here is against the marketing, not the idea of the feature. When it comes to leveling mechanisms, anything with a normal 4-bolt mechanism where you loosen the corners, lower the bed and tighten the corners fall into the it'll do category. But there's variance in here. Creality, for example, use such soft metal that it's easier than most to actually thread these bolts, which is an absolute piss take. The only other standout is uniformation in both the GK2, GK3 and GK3 Pro, where you level the plate with one set of screws and then lock those into place with another. Once done, I've never had to re-level these, which is bloody bang on. And despite the plate being large, it's also light and prevents you getting resin on top. It would be my favourite if it wasn't for a feature I know of on other machines. Which neatly brings me on to the one I really love because of its high-tech nature, but I still can't quite say is the dog's bollocks. And yes, it's Hagear's, because the leveling process in those printers has a visual guide not only telling you what direction to turn each leveling screw, but how far to turn it as well. Yet, despite this, I've actually had to re-level my original reflex a few times now, which is a frustrating chore, because you have to empty the vat every time you do it on these machines. The one that I need to call out as total wanky tat shouldn't surprise you. It's Elegoo's approach this time round. Not only is this 2-tiered plate a nightmare to get resin out of, it shows the worst features of thin plates and thick plates at the same time with no benefit. But you can't even adjust the leveling of these all that much either, and it would have been so easy to make this adjustable. I've said it before, but I hope we never see this style again in future Elegoo printers, but I've got a feeling that Elegoo plan to push forward with plates where leveling can't be adjusted by the user, which would be totally fine if they can ensure that these are bang on out of the box. Moving on to features within the arm itself, we know some printers have pressure sensing features, and these have generally really impressed me. Any printer claiming to be high level without these nowadays is a bit of a piss take. Uniformation. Sorry, bad chest. With Elegoo and Frozen delivering some basic functionality like resin level detection, it'll do, but Anycubic are bloody bang on by offering those features, but also dynamic lift height too, which is another Anycubic feature I'll have to do a video on because they've completely failed to explain how it works, just like the RERF tests. The dog's bollocks here though, yeah, it's hay gears again. Sorry, I know a lot of you hate it, but with so many sensors in it, this not only has dynamic lift height, but speed too, all based on resin and environment temperature as well. And this level of sensitivity is likely one of the main reasons that people have been able to get so many resins working in these machines, despite them not directly or officially being classed as compatible. When it comes to VATs, well, we can rate the release films, but this is really dependent on what you want, PFA or ACF. I've talked about the differences enough in reviews for people to learn about the materials. Whether you want one or the other, it doesn't matter, it'll do, it's your call. The things about VATs that really matter to me are size, shape, and the pour spout. Yes, the pour spout, it f***ing matters. For size, well, if it's a 10-inch printer, I'd like to be able to hold at least a whole bottle of resin in it. But when you get to some larger printers, these can get cumbersome anyway, just solely due to how big they are. This fiddliness only really matters when pouring resin out anyway, because the rest of the time, the VATs are sat immobile in the printer. So other than existing and having to be there, when it comes to the function you need to perform with a VAT, it is pouring the resin out, and I still can't believe how many brands struggle to get that right. Whether you use a funnel or not, resin isn't water, it's sticky, so as you pour, instead of flowing from the lip of the spout, resin pours down and often under the vat, leaving you to awkwardly hold these metal frames one-handed as you awkwardly reach for some tissue to clean yourself up with, to clean it up with. Sorry, I was thinking of the same problem in a different scenario. And if you think I'm just being petty about spouts, well, wait, because I'm gonna go further. I also very specifically hate it when these spouts are in the front right corners of plates. Because I'm right-handed, I feel I can control the flow better when the spout is at the front left, because I've got my dominant hand taking and controlling the weight. And you're right, it's a pour spout. Does it really matter? No, but at the same time, when companies are building machines that cost us hundreds, how can they not get this simple function right? Am I insane here? Why can't they get this right? Hashtag make spouts great again. So far this year, only the M7 Max and the Reflex can be rated as bloody bang on and the dog's bollocks respectively, because the spouts on these have a pronounced extrusion which helps prevent that annoying run over. The whole GK3 series falls into my piss take category for not only putting the lip in the rear right side corner of the vat, but also needs to get the resin up a ramp before it flows out. I know these things aren't common outside of England, but let me give you a tip. Kettle. Google it. Now on to heating. Not all printers have heaters, and considering the main, but not only, reason the Resin GK2 dominated the popularity charts in the last year was due to its heater, I expected we'd see more heaters in printers this year, but no. So aside from budget and entry-level printers, I'd consider any machine without a sensible heating option as available as absolute wanky tap, mostly because it's something I need. But, as people have said repeatedly in my comments section, this is not needed for everyone. Print farms, for example, would potentially control the room temperature more than the printer itself. And considering there are some DIY options available for all printers, I guess I'm resigned to it'll do. But let's compare printers' solutions and rate the heaters alone. Chamber heaters, in my opinion, in general, are somewhere between absolute piss take and it'll do. Most of the integrated versions push the hot air into the top of the chamber. Elegoo's add-on heater is limited to only 25 degrees Celsius. Anyway, if the point of a heater is to combat the environmental temperature, then I want something that will heat the resin more than the air around it. I mean, we've got heating nailed on FDM printers, both for the nozzle and the build plate. Surely we should be able to do the same for resin? I'm also going to call out Anycubic on the M7 Pro. Now, its heater works and it heats the resin well, but it's such a cumbersome implementation which requires additional cleaning and makes the vat hard to maneuver when emptying the resin. Personally, for me, I want to like it for the ingenuity, but I just can't help but say it's wanky tat due to its awkwardness. The two standout approaches are heated vats and heating from below the screen. Both Hagear's machines and the Anycubic M7 Max have vat heaters where the frame of the vat is heated, which in turn warms the resin. How efficient this is your guess as good as mine. I'm not a thermodynamicist, if that's even a thing, but I do wonder if the resin is warmer at the edges of the vat than in the center, something Formlabs suggest with the presence of their wiper arm. Uniformation so far are the only ones I've seen who heat the resin from below by warming it through the LCD. I can only imagine why this provides more even heat, and please tell me if I'm wrong, and whilst people will say that this reduces the life of the LCD, I haven't seen evidence of GK2 screens failing at some alarming rate compared to others. I guess until we start seeing more machines with heating implemented and we have a wider consensus of what good versus bad looks like, I'm still only rating these ones as bang on, because these at least do a decent job. As for the screens themselves that we're seeing nowadays, well, this generation has really proved to us that there's been little progress in screens. We haven't progressed much further from last year's 27 micron displays, and in some cases we've actually stepped backwards, chasing that bigger resolution number at the cost of general quality. And I see so many people quizzing print quality on printers in a lot of my reviews, and I'd say it's far more than I think it even actually matters. Because the amount of people I see who are pushing for that higher resolution number or falling for the brand's bullshit and then getting the higher resolution printer, even if it's the sharpest one, and then sticking the cheapest resins in them. And that's not a slight. If anything, go with what you're happy with, but you could probably save money buying a cheaper, lower resolution or even older printer. The point here is the only advancements we've really seen this year are the features around the print quality, not so much the print quality itself. So look, to make this quick, I'd say any printer with a sub 35 micron pixel size falls into the it'll do category. Any of those which include a sharp COB light source are bloody bang on. But any printer, which I've covered in reviews, any printer that pushes those higher resolution numbers as a win whilst having such poor UV transmittance or using ACF film by default is an absolute piss take. And I'm talking specifically about the smaller printers we've seen this year, which I'm still putting in that it'll do category, but are measurably just not as sharp as some larger printers with larger pixels. To a point, the same can be said about printers' UIs. Nothing I've seen is wow, everything is it'll do, though I do have a preference again for both Anycubic and Hagear's. They're still just okay. Creality's Hallett Mage S is the same piss take as it was last year with the Pro, by having stupidly ordered menus and scrolling text. And sorry GK3, you're guilty of this now too. Scrolling UI text in 2024 or now 2025, the whole UI is a piss take, but that specific implementation is absolute, utter wanky tat. To finish off, I want to talk about some features not present or still not common on many machines, things like webcams and tilting bats and the like. I do like the tilting bat. I think it's bloody bang on. It gives us improved print speed, no reduction in print sharpness, and stops the little bubbles you get on the tops of round surfaces. It has its drawbacks, such as uneven base layers and a big gap around the vat, which, yeah, is a spill hazard. But considering everything I print is on supports anyway, I give very few fucks about these drawbacks. Or at least I do for now, until I eventually need to replace the screens on these printers because it's a full teardown on the Saturn IVs in order to do that. Any brand that's made an easily replaceable LCD is bloody bang on. Now when it comes to webcams, well, We have the low resolution Mighty Revo cam that at least lights up your print as it takes an image, but the resulting time lapse is of such poor quality that it is a bit of a piss take. Then when you want to remotely monitor this in the app, you don't get a video, you only get a photo when you request one, so overall, pretty poor guys. It's Elegoo that pushes this into absolute piss take territory because there's no light and no app. But speaking of apps, we've now seen more of these, and they do keep changing. Frozen and Hey Gears fall into the realm of it'll do. Creality is an absolute piss take due to its terrible navigation and pushiness towards their awful online store. But I'll elevate Anycubic to bloody bang on because this has been great for notifications and progress monitoring too. And then there's the rather unique Hey Gears PRM, which people keep asking me whether or not it's worth it. Well, I guess it depends how much $500 is burning a hole in your pocket. What it does, it makes the default support contact points a little bit smaller, and with that, in my experience, I was more than happy with the quality of my Puppets War models I printed with Part 10. They just pulled from the PRM supports with no cleanup needed at all. But it's also bloody loud for the whole print. It's a lot of money for what is essentially a very small difference. I have one plugged into my Reflex because I got one with my Reflex, and I've never used it on the RS and have no burning desire to get another one personally, even if they send me one free. It's okay. And finally, because I just want an excuse to shit on them as always, resin pumps. They are all just so limited to what bottles you can connect or so slow that I consider them as absolute, utter, total, bollocksy, twatting, awful wanky tat. They're terrible. Yeah, sorry guys, I don't like them. If you want a channel that does, then that's not me. There's nothing wrong with manually pouring resin in and out, even with shitty spouts. The only benefit I see to these is when you need to top up a resin mid-print, but the pressure sensing to ensure you have enough resin at the start of a print has rendered even that value somewhat redundant. I wish for all printers where these are available, they were offered as an optional extra only, so thank you Frozen. But I'm so convinced that people find these just as shit as I do, that if brands did that, I think they'd actually stop bothering to make them at all after just one more generation due to poor sales. I could be wrong, hands up if I am. As I said in the intro, I never professed to be the authority on any of this stuff. This is just my opinion, but I want to know, what do you think? What's your opinion of these printer features? What have you seen and what do you like? What have I missed? Do you agree with my analysis? If so, well, sorry, that's no fun. Let's have some discourse. Sensible though, please. I did say this was opinion only. What would you like to see the brands carry forward into the next generation? What features would you like to see them kill off completely? What would your perfect printer have? Let me know all of that along with what underpants you're wearing down in the comments. I want to say thanks for watching, with a huge thanks going to our members who are on screen now. Until next time, Klaatu, Barada, Nick Pohammer out.